What's up, Canada? Welcome back to Canadian Insights, and buckle up because today we're diving into the latest episode of America's Got Trade Threats where Scott Bessent just told our Prime Minister to basically sit down and behave before the grown-ups negotiate. Yeah, you heard that right. The US Treasury Secretary just gave Mark Carney a timeout warning, and honestly, the audacity is kind of impressive. So grab your double-double, forget about being polite for a minute, and let's talk about how Canada's getting schooled in international diplomacy, Trump style. So here's the tea, and it's piping hot. Scott Bessent, who's basically Trump's money guy, was at some event in Washington launching Trump accounts, which sounds like something you'd find between a timeshare presentation and a cryptocurrency scam, but whatever. While he's there promoting investment vehicles for kids, because apparently that's what Treasury secretaries do now, he decides to take a swing at our Prime Minister. CNBC asks him about the whole Carney versus Trump situation, and Bessent goes full dad mode with the I'm not angry, just disappointed energy. He tells Carney to focus on what's best for Canadians instead of virtue signaling. Virtue signaling. Like standing up for your country's interests is some kind of Instagram activism. The man literally said Carney shouldn't pick a fight before CUSMA negotiations to score cheap political points. And I'm sitting here thinking, wait, isn't threatening to blow up a trade agreement that benefits American industries also kind of picking a fight? But hey, what do I know? I'm just a Canadian with access to Google and a functioning sense of irony. Now let's rewind for a second because context matters, even when it's absolutely bonkers. Mark Carney gave this speech at Davos, you know, that fancy Swiss resort where billionaires pretend to care about the planet between ski sessions. And apparently, whatever Carney said really got under Trump's skin. We're talking rent-free living in the presidential headspace. Bessent's claiming that Carney rose to power on an anti-American, anti-Trump message, which is a fascinating interpretation of Canadian politics considering most of our election was about healthcare, housing, and whether we could afford groceries without taking out a second mortgage. But here's where it gets spicy. Bessent drops this gem about how it's not smart to antagonize an economy that's multiple times larger than yours, especially when they're your biggest trading partner. And okay, fair point, except that's literally the geopolitical equivalent of I'm bigger than you so shut up. It's schoolyard bully logic dressed up in a three-piece suit. Canada's supposed to just smile and nod while the US slaps tariffs on our exports like they're playing whack-a-mole with our economy? That's not negotiation, that's extortion with a PowerPoint presentation. Speaking of those tariffs, let's talk about the economic headlock Canada's currently in. Throughout 2025, Trump's administration has been throwing tariffs at Canadian goods like confetti at a wedding nobody wanted to attend. Steel, aluminum, lumber, you name it, there's probably a tariff on it. And now, with CUSMA up for review, the Trump administration is threatening to make changes so significant that Trump himself has floated the idea of just scrapping the whole agreement. Never mind that American industries overwhelmingly support CUSMA. Never mind that integrated supply chains mean what's bad for Canada is also bad for Michigan, Ohio, and pretty much every state that isn't growing palm trees. Details, details. The irony here is thicker than poutine gravy. CUSMA, or USMCA if you prefer the American name because of course they needed their own acronym, was Trump's baby during his first term. He literally bragged about it being the greatest trade deal in the history of trade deals, maybe ever. And now he's threatening to toss it in the garbage because our Prime Minister had the audacity to, what, defend Canadian interests? Make sense of that for me, because I've been trying and my brain hurts. Let's zoom out for a second and look at what Bessent's really saying here. He's telling Canada's leader to be a good little neighbor and not make waves before negotiations. Translation, accept whatever terms we dictate or else. It's the diplomatic version of nice trade relationship you got there, would be a shame if something happened to it. And the kicker? He's doing this while simultaneously admitting that the US is way bigger and more powerful, like that somehow makes bullying okay. Since when did might makes right become official US foreign policy? Oh wait, I forgot what timeline we're in. Now here's what really grinds my gears about this whole situation. Canada isn't some random country Trump decided to pick on this week. We're literally neighbors. We share the world's longest undefended border. Our economies are so intertwined that trying to separate them would be like trying to unscramble an egg. Canadian aluminum goes into American fighter jets. American parts end up in Canadian cars. We buy each other's stuff to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars every year. This isn't a relationship of convenience, it's a relationship of necessity. But sure, let's threaten to blow it all up because the Prime Minister said something mean at a conference. And let's be real about Carney's so-called anti-American stance for a minute. The guy was literally the governor of the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada. He's not exactly some radical firebrand screaming about revolution. He's a central banker. These are the most boring, careful, calculated people on earth. If Carney's being anti-American, it's probably in the most polite, economically sound, footnote-heavy way imaginable. But apparently, any criticism of Trump or his policies now qualifies as picking a fight, even when you're just stating observable facts about trade imbalances or tariff impacts. Here's the thing that Bessent either doesn't understand or conveniently ignores. Carney can't just roll over and let the US dictate terms without looking completely spineless to Canadian voters. We just had an election where people were demanding leadership that actually stands up for Canada. The Conservative opposition would eviscerate him if he showed up to CUSMA negotiations with a white flag and a box of Timbits as a peace offering. So Bessent's advice to do what's best for Canadians while simultaneously demanding Carney shut up and take whatever deal Trump offers is contradictory at best and insulting at worst. The timing of all this is also fascinating. Trump accounts, really? The Treasury Secretary is out here promoting children's investment accounts while the global economy is worried about trade wars and tariff escalation. It's like your house is on fire and you're outside debating the best color for a new mailbox. But I guess when you're in the Trump administration, every event is an opportunity to issue threats to America's allies while promoting some branded financial product. Efficiency. What's truly wild is that this isn't even the first time we've been through this rodeo. During Trump's first term, we had the whole NAFTA renegotiation drama, with threats and counter-threats and Trudeau getting called names on Twitter at 3 a.m. Canadian negotiators eventually got a deal that was basically NAFTA with some updates and a new name, which Trump declared a massive victory despite it being like 90% the same. Now we're doing it all over again, except this time Carney's the target instead of Trudeau, and apparently the crime is giving a speech in Switzerland. The bigger picture here is that Canada's caught in an impossible position. We need trade with the US because geography and economics aren't optional. But we also can't be seen as a complete pushover, because countries that get walked all over in negotiations tend to get walked all over in everything else. It's a delicate balance of defending your interests while not poking the bear so hard that it mauls your entire automotive sector. And now Bessent's out here acting like Canada defending its own economic interests is somehow unreasonable while the US threatens to tear up trade agreements on a whim. You know what's missing from Bessent's analysis? Any acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, threatening your allies and largest trading partners with economic warfare isn't great diplomacy either. It's all about what Carney should or shouldn't do, with zero reflection on whether the Trump administration's approach might be slightly problematic. It's the international relations equivalent of "why are you making me hit you?" And we're supposed to just accept this as normal. So where does this leave Canada? Well, we've got CUSMA negotiations coming up with an American administration that's already shown it's willing to use tariffs as weapons and threaten to scrap agreements whenever it feels like it. We've got a Prime Minister who apparently committed the sin of defending Canada at an international conference. And we've got a US Treasury Secretary issuing warnings on cable news like this is some kind of reality TV show, which, let's be honest, is exactly what this administration treats everything like. The reality is that Canada's going to have to navigate these negotiations carefully, and that means Carney's got to balance firmness with pragmatism. He can't afford to cave completely, but he also can't afford a full-blown trade war with our largest trading partner. It's like playing poker when everyone can see your cards and the dealer keeps changing the rules mid-game. Fun times. But here's what I want you to remember: defending your country's interests isn't virtue signaling. Standing up for your economy isn't picking a fight. And being told to sit down and be quiet by a bigger neighbor doesn't mean you have to listen. Canada's got legitimate concerns about tariffs, trade barriers, and economic fairness. Raising those concerns isn't anti-American, it's pro-Canadian. And if the Trump administration can't tell the difference, that says more about them than it does about us. Alright Canada, that's the situation. Scott Bessent wants Carney to play nice, Trump wants to rewrite CUSMA, and we're all just along for the ride on the world's most stressful trade negotiation roller coaster. If you want to stay updated on all this chaos as it unfolds, because trust me it's going to keep unfolding, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. We're posting multiple times a day because Canadian politics never sleeps, apparently. Drop a comment and let me know what you think Carney should do, stand firm or play diplomat. I'll see you in the next video where we'll probably be discussing whatever wild thing happens next in this never-ending saga. Stay informed, stay skeptical, and stay Canadian.